Now then, guys, welcome back to the George Scaife LFC channel. Some big news today. Luis Diaz looks all but confirmed to join Bayern Munich, confirmed by Fabrizio Romano. FC Bayern are closing in on a deal to sign Luis Diaz from Liverpool. Agreement in, let me make myself a bit smaller here. Agreement at final stages with details being sorted. 75 million euros is the package, with add-ons included. The contract's until June 2029. Liverpool and Bayern Munich discussing add-on details. Let's talk about this signing, guys, or sale, I should say. It's also confirmed from Florian Plettenberg, who, by the way, I must say, I've been quite annoyed by this guy. That whole Wirtz shirt number saga thing, that annoyed me. But in fairness, he should know more about the signing than anyone, having been a German correspondent, I believe. So breakthrough in negotiations. Luis Diaz to FC Bayern is now considered a done deal. This is even more concrete than what Fabrizio is making it sound like. An agreement between Bayern and Liverpool has been reached in principle after the new bid was submitted, as revealed. It's 75 million euros. Let's talk about this because I've got to be honest with you. I'm really torn if this is a good signing or not. Don't get me wrong. The number. Hold on. Let me just move this. The number we've been given here is 75 million euros, and of course, that's an amazing deal for a player who's 29 years old. We've seen so much good has come out of Luis Diaz at Liverpool. However, I can't help but think a bit gutted. I feel a bit gutted. He's my favourite player in the squad. He's my favourite player, along with maybe Conor Bradley and Alisson Becker, right? And when your favourite player leaves, you feel a bit almost like, ooh, that stings a bit. Do you know what I mean? Very Coutinho vibes, in my opinion. And listen, Coutinho was a better player than Diaz. At the time when Coutinho left, I was a bit younger, so it's like, why is he leaving? It doesn't really feel right, but I get it. You know, you start to get it right. And Diaz gave everything. He left everything on the pitch. He was an absolute trier, an absolute workhorse, and had so many great highlights. I mean, none other than the Leverkusen game this year, playing up front, scored 3 goals. It was an amazing performance. And that's just kind of the start. There's so many great Champions League moments he's given us. And what it is about Diaz that got me was he was a proper worker, and he never gave less than 100%. If you've criticised Diaz in your life, which, by the way, I have, absolutely, but have you ever criticised him for his work rate, his lack of energy, his lack of off the ball, just trying to do some stuff for the team, giving his all for the team? I've never criticised him for that. It's always been for his inconsistent periods, his inconsistent spells and dips in his form, which, has been an absolute apparent thing with Diaz. But does that really warrant for all the criticism he got to the level he got it? Like, I agree to an extent. He was very inconsistent at times, certainly in the middle part of this season. But really, like, some of the stuff I'm seeing on Luis Diaz, I think was actually shocking this season on Twitter, etc. And I think people look back on this signing as like, wow, he was seriously underrated in terms of signing him for, was it 45 million euros, selling him for 75. We've made profit on this guy. He's now 29. He's won the Premier League at Liverpool. And I think it's a success. It's a successful transfer, and I've no doubt he'll go to Bayern Munich and absolutely thrive. His position in the squad right now is pretty unsure. Let me just get this up. Wait, how would you get that off there? Paul Joyce. Bayern Munich closing in on the deal, the same as what everyone is saying so far, £65 million, 75 million euros. Liverpool have just arrived in Tokyo, and Diaz is still with the party, so he's travelled to Tokyo, which is interesting. But I will say, this doesn't really tell me that he's going to stay. Like, this doesn't shut down the news. Players travel with teams. Like, he's not going to not travel because, one, that makes it really obvious that he's leaving. So I think they want to try and make this as under wraps as possible, right? To not disrupt the pre-season tour as much as possible. I think it was quite obvious, though, given that he didn't even come on in the previous game against AC Milan. He travelled, but he didn't even start, he didn't even come on, let alone start, right? That was pretty obvious to me then that this was very, very wrapped up, and I think it will happen. We're just waiting for that. Here we go, of course. What are your thoughts on this signing? Let me know in the comments. I'd love you to get involved in this community. We've got a really great community, by the way, down below. Some great, really good points, actually, guys. I was debating with a guy yesterday, made some great points about Harvey Elliott. So go and check my recent videos out. I want to hear where you stand on this. I have no doubt he'll go to Bayern Munich and absolutely thrive and just hit the ground running like he did at Liverpool. He's 29 now, plug-and-play player. He's going to come straight in and impact the side instantly. I think Musiala's had a bad injury. Touch wood, that's not significant, but Bayern Munich were kind of forced into playing a hand, maybe more expensive than they wanted to originally, and that is Luis Diaz. And in terms of having an instant impact in the Bundesliga, a league, which is quite spread. It's quite what's the word for that? I think teams can get quite open, and there's a lot of distance between the back line and the front line, and there's a lot of spaces in the Bundesliga. Think how many goals are scored on transition. I'd say genuinely, there must be a stat for this. Is the Bundesliga the most like prolific league for transitional goals, counter-attack goals. I look at Erling Haaland. A lot of his goals at Dortmund were that kind of goal. I look at a lot of what Ekatike and Marmoush are doing at Frankfurt as well. So I think on the counter-attack, he's going to just be so ruthless. He was so ruthless at Liverpool. So I've no doubt that will transcend into the Bundesliga. That kind of running power that he has, that ability to beat defenders with pace and also skill. He's quite a gritty player. He's quite strong and he gives a bit, doesn't he? He gives a bit of bastard as well. Like he can give a bit. And that's why I think with Diaz, right? Let me just get this one up here because look at this. Look at all the achievements he's won with us. What a player, mate. I love Diaz. I really do. In fact, I'll show it. There you go. The reason I think it's a really negative signing, like the one reason I could think of, barring my personal love for him, is I don't think we can replace him. Like for like. Granted, we might sign someone who's better than Diaz ability-wise. Look at Rodrigo, or I look at Rodrigo. There's not really many in the world, genuinely for me, left wingers who are better than Luis Diaz. And even then, Rodrigo is like only marginally for me a better player. But that grit that he had, that kind of cutting edge that Luis Diaz had, I don't know what it was, that kind of South American grit, that determination, that will to run and get us over the line. I believe, didn't he play 120 minutes in the Cup that game? It's like he played like every game for such a long period of time when a lot of forwards were injured, and he was the guy who was filling it up front at times on the left. And yeah, if you asked from him, he would deliver. Always. He was so persistent. I say was, like, he is, because he will be at Bayern Munich. I've no doubt he'll smash it. He is so persistent. Like, if he tried to take on a defender and didn't beat him, he won't be like moping about like maybe some would. But he would just go at him again in 5 minutes later, maybe take him on the outside wing, on the outside path, right? And then he'd get past him. I imagine he gave defenders a really tough time, and defenders, fullbacks certainly came off the game thinking, my word, like he had me switched on today. He'd give a bit back to me as well. And yeah, Diaz is a real asset for Liverpool. I think he got on with a lot of players. That South American link with Núñez, I think, was particularly noticeable. And also McAllister. He seemed to congregate with them players. I think him and, in my opinion, actually Salah, I know they played on opposite wings, but on them counter-attacks, they really worked. And Salah had Mane as his counterpart for years. And having, again, Mane, wow, what shoes to fill Diaz had when he came in to replace Sadio Mane. That kind of duo with him and Salah, with Firmino as well, that trio. And I think the first 6 months, he did it. It was like, it wasn't to the level of prime Mane, right? But that drop-off was so not noticeable because Diaz came in and was instantly effective, and him and Salah were instantly singing off the same hymn sheet. And I think they were actually through the duration of his time at Liverpool, Diaz. Sad to see him go. It's very sad to see him go. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments, but let's end back on this. It seems all but confirmed an agreement between them has been made. So if this is a here we go overnight or something, this has been my final video on it. So take this as a here we go. It doesn't seem like much is going to change now. Look at the trophies this guy's won, mate. Like, hold on, sorry. I'm flicking all around here. Look at the trophies this guy's won, what he's done for us. And I think he should be appreciated. I think people look back on this as, wow, what a successful transfer that was. Was I a bit harsh on Diaz? People might be thinking. I hope people do think that, because I think a lot of people were at the wrong times. Very unfair treatment of this player when he clearly gave everything for the club. When, yeah, he had his dips. But who doesn't? Who doesn't dip in form? The only thing is, like, you're comparing Diaz to Salah on the other side, who's literally a freak of nature, will never see a player again like Mo Salah in terms of output. Diaz is having to compare to that man. He's getting compared to that man. He's not going to score 27 goals a year in the Premier League, but Salah might. That's not a bad thing on Diaz, though. Do you know what I mean? Because some of the ground Diaz covered, actually. There were times last year, weren't there, where Diaz would pick the ball up on the right side of the defence. As a right back, he'd pick the ball up there. Like, how have you got there? But he'd work for the team, he'd do it, and he'd always be running around. He'd always be sprinting. The amount of ground he would cover would genuinely be frightening. And he was so good off the ball in that front four, whether it be through the middle, whether it be on the left-hand side. I really liked him, actually, through the middle. I thought it was a real asset there, and it really worked for a spell, Diaz through the middle. I think the goals dried up at one point, which was, yeah, you got to call these things out. Like, I'm not sitting here going, Diaz was the best player of all time. But he was very good, and them dry spells, I think a lot of players have them, and I think people are very harsh on the treatment of Diaz with them, the spells, compared to another player like a Núñez, for example. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm really interested. Luis Diaz, the man Lucho. Yeah, cheers for everything, because one of my favourite players, and I'll never forget Luis Diaz, mate. I've got Australian there. Nice one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and subscribe for more Liverpool stuff. Nice one. See you later. Bye.